think my husband is the father of his best friend's children, and now her son is showing interest in my daughter. It all started with an intrusive thought I just couldn't shake. Over the years, it blossomed like a poisonous flower, poisoning my mind. I'm 42 years old. My husband, Luke, is 43, and so is Emmy. I met Luke in college. He and Emmy had been friends since they were 7. They did everything together, understood each other without words. They were best friends and always said they were like adopted siblings. Naturally, as Luke's girlfriend, I always felt a little threatened by Emmy's closeness with him. But they both assured me I had nothing to worry about, that their bond wasn't romantic and never had been. Emmy was simply the sister Luke never had. I believed them, and soon I completely forgot my insecurity and jealousy. Emmy became my friend, too. She even officiated our wedding ceremony. Luke and I built a beautiful life and have always had a strong relationship. After the wedding, when we moved in together, we continued to see Emmy a lot, and I was fine with that. I spent many evenings with her, trying to help her find a man because she often complained about her bad luck in love. After we got married, Luke and I started having kids, and around the same time, Emmy started having kids too. For context, my children are Sophie, 15, Owen, 12, Louise, 10, and Carter, 6. Emmy's children are Tom, 17, Kylie, 14, and the twins, Adam and Jenna, who are 9. At the time, Emmy wasn't in a relationship. She wasn't married, as far as I knew. She was dating casually, but nothing serious. While Luke and I were having more children and our family was growing, Emmy would also turn up pregnant from time to time. It happened several times, and Luke and I knew nothing about the supposed fathers. I once suggested that maybe Emmy was just sleeping around and not keeping in touch with the men afterwards. Luke agreed that was probably the case. Every time, I'd ask if Emmy knew who the father was, but she always said no, and she didn't seem too bothered by the idea of raising kids alone. So I didn't press her. Of course, she had our support, and that meant a lot. Although Emmy never asked for help, Luke couldn't just let his best friend drown with kids on her hands. Financially, we were very fortunate. I have a well-paying job, and Luke's parents are wealthy. They'd known and loved Emmy for years, so they were happy to help her. My in-laws are the complete opposite of all the stereotypes, the kindest, gentlest people. So we could support Emmy and provide a home for her and her children. Some might call her a freeloader, but I never saw her that way. None of us did. She needed help, and we could give it. I also understand many would judge her for being irresponsible and ask why she never used reliable contraception. Honestly, it's a long story I don't want to get into because even I don't fully understand her reasoning. But for Emmy, it was a matter of principle never to use birth control and to accept whatever came of it. It wasn't religious, I know that for sure, but it was that important to her. She really didn't want to take hormonal drugs. She explained it to me more than once, but I still don't quite get why. Since Emmy had been Luke's best friend since childhood, it wasn't surprising that they sometimes spent time together without me. And that was fine. I sometimes spent time alone with Emmy too, although Luke did it more often. She was his friend first, after all. Sometimes he'd go over to her place and even stay the night. Was I a fool for trusting him, for believing nothing was going on between them? Maybe, but for years, they acted like just friends, like a brother and sister. I never felt any kind of romantic vibe between them. As you might expect, our kids grew up together. Not in the same house. Our home is spacious, but not big enough for 8 kids. But we introduced Emmy's children to ours from a very young age, and they always got along well. A real friendship blossomed between them, which is a good thing, especially if I'm right and they share the same blood. I keep putting off the main point. Yes, I started to suspect that Luke was the father of at least one of Emmy's children, if not all of them. To be honest, I suspect it's all of them. I never would have believed my husband was capable of something like that, and he never gave me a reason to think he was a cheater. But he does spend a lot of time with Emmy, and I have to admit, I can't recall her having a real boyfriend in all these years. She might chat with men at bars and parties. I tried to help her as a friend, but it never went beyond conversation. So when she got pregnant the first time, I was surprised. When it happened again and again, I started to wonder if she was hiding some secret lover she didn't want to tell us about for some reason. But I couldn't think of a single reason why she would hide him, especially from her own children. After our youngest, Carter, was born, Luke and I decided it was time for him to get a vasectomy. Emmy's twins had been born just a couple of years before that. Of course, Luke and I continued to be intimate after the procedure, but I no longer had to think about pregnancy. Meanwhile, after her twins were born, Emmy never got pregnant again. Is it a coincidence that after Luke's vasectomy, neither I nor Emmy got pregnant again? I don't know. But Luke continued to visit her, and not just her, but her children as well. In retrospect, I should have paid more attention sooner, because Luke has always acted like a father to them, especially as they've gotten older. He's the father they never had. He doesn't neglect me or our kids one bit. It's like he's carrying a double load. The desire to be a father figure for a friend's children isn't suspicious in itself. You can even call it noble. But combined with a lot of other little things, there's the physical resemblance. I won't go into details like hair and eye color or unique features because I want to limit identifying details and keep the story as vague as possible. But let's just say Emmy's kids could easily be Luke's kids. Okay? One has a very rare allergy, the same one Luke has. The twins look a lot like him, especially Adam. The older Tom gets, the more of Luke I see in his face and personality. And while race doesn't matter, the fact is that Luke is of a different race than Emmy, and Emmy's children look quite mixed race. I could easily believe their father is the same race as Luke. Of course, this doesn't prove Luke is the father, but it's very suspicious. I've never spoken about my anxieties out loud, not to Emmy, not to Luke. I don't want to be the villain, and whether they're guilty or not, I'm sure they would deny everything and get offended. Imagine if this drama reached our kids, or Emmy's kids. In any case, Luke continues to spend time with Emmy and her children, just as her kids hang out with mine. I've hinted to Luke that I feel a bit neglected and would like him to give Emmy less of his attention, but he either didn't get the hints or pretended not to. I don't want to insist on the idea that she's his priority, because it's not even true. He's never neglected me for her. It's just that I can't shake the feeling that Luke and Emmy have been intimate, maybe more than once. As far as I know, Emmy never particularly wanted to be a mother. Nevertheless, with each of her children, she fell in love with them at first sight. But motherhood was never a crucial part of her life plan or identity. When we talked about the future, she would sometimes mention a husband and kids, but it never seemed like something she truly strived for. So I don't think this is a story about Luke giving Emmy children. I doubt that was the goal of the affair. It was more likely a side effect. For years, I turned a blind eye. The thought had been lingering in the back of my mind ever since Kylie was diagnosed with that same allergy, but I brushed it off. It got worse after the twins were born. I brushed it off again. Then, When Emmy stopped having children, I tried to find comfort in that. But Luke had just had his vasectomy. So if anything, my anxiety only grew. There were nights I wished the twins were younger, that they had been born after Luke's procedure. This has been eating at me for a long time, but I don't want to be the one to tear our family to shreds, especially since, technically, I could be wrong. But now, I'm truly scared, because in the last few months, something new has happened in our kids' circle. Tom, Emmy's oldest son, asked Sophie out on a date. Sophie is my oldest daughter. In recent years, she has blossomed into a beautiful, confident young woman. So I'm not surprised that boys are interested in her. But the fact that it was Tom who asked her out completely threw me. Sophie turned him down, but only because I'm quite strict about her dating, and she knew she had to talk to me first. I could see right away that she was flattered by his attention and interested. She wanted to say yes. She came to talk to me. Good girl, did everything right. I think she expected me to support her and agree that she could date Tom. To her surprise, I said no, very firmly. This caused a small fight. It wasn't that she desperately wanted to go on this date. She just didn't understand why she couldn't. And I couldn't explain. All I could come up with was, he's too old for you. And he's older, but that's not the real reason. When Emmy and Luke found out, I was dying to see how they would react. If either of them had sided with Sophie and tried to change my mind, telling me we should let them date, I probably would have felt relieved. I would have taken it as proof that I was wrong, that I was mistaken about Luke being the father of Emmy's kids. But no, the ambiguity remained. They both sided with me. They were both against it, though not as strongly as I was. Luke agreed with me but expressed concern that forbidding it might only fuel Sophie's interest. He might be right. Emmy, it seemed to me, was more indifferent. She also didn't want Tom dating Sophie and supported me, but I don't know. She didn't take it seriously, as if she thought it was just a fleeting crush. Well, in the months since all these talks, Tom has been spending more and more time with Sophie. They hang out alone or with friends at every opportunity. It's now perfectly clear. Tom is crazy about Sophie and wants to be with her. And he definitely wants to get physical. I watched them like a hawk and have caught him staring at her body more than once. For now, I'm doing everything I can to nip this romance in the bud, but I feel completely powerless. Sophie isn't openly defying me. She's still just friends with Tom. So forbidding them from seeing each other would be unreasonable and would likely just push them to meet in secret. And I'm terrified that's already happening. My worst nightmare is that they're already dating secretly and doing God knows what when no one is watching. I've seen Tom touch Sophie's shoulders, and she's never objected. I just don't know what to say. I thought about maybe trying to convince Sophie that Tom is like a brother to her. But if she doesn't see him that way, I can't rewrite their feelings or how their relationship has developed since childhood. To me, Emmy and her kids have always been like family. But to my kids, maybe they're just best friends. And the problem is, if my husband has really been cheating on me all this time, and if I'm right about him being the father of Emmy's children, then Tom and Sophie can't be anything more than friends. Under any circumstances, ever. That's it, but I can't stop it. Luke, as far as I know, has talked to Tom. Emmy has too, but Tom isn't giving up and isn't backing down. And Sophie seems to like the attention and devotion. Tom even came to me directly and asked why I was so against it, since I know him well and should understand that he'd be perfect for Sophie. I didn't know what to say except to repeat that she's too young, but that won't work forever. If, God forbid, in a couple of years they are still drawn to each other, Won't they just jump into it head first as soon as they're adults? I won't be able to do anything about it then. Emmy and Luke agree with me that Tom shouldn't date Sophie, but that's all they've done. They feel as powerless against teenage love as I do. Sometimes it seems like they've just given up, decided to bury their heads in the sand, do nothing, and hope it all just goes away. And yes, they're 15 and 17. It's unlikely Tom will love Sophie for the rest of his life. But I'm afraid that before his feelings fade, she'll let him do something intimate with her, something you can't undo. I'm literally on the edge of saying out loud what's been eating me up inside for years. On the edge of screaming at Luke that none of this would be happening if he hadn't been cheating on me all this time. If he hadn't been basically raising a second family with his adopted sister behind my back. And now Luke's son wants to screw our daughter, his own sister, because he thinks she's just his childhood friend. And it's all because of Luke and Emmy, because of what they did. If I speak up, everything will go to hell. What if I'm wrong? Then I'm a monster who accused the love of my life and one of my closest friends of something horrible. And if I'm right, everything will still fall apart. The family and social structure we've built for years will disappear, and everyone will be stressed and in tears. Even if Luke and I don't get divorced. If I do nothing, Sophie will end up sleeping with Tom and becoming his girlfriend, and I'll quietly go insane with fear that it will happen sooner rather than later, or worse, that it has already happened right under my nose. I pray that this romance fades as they get older. But what if it doesn't? What if they're together for years? What if they get married? Want to have kids? And if I tell Sophie the truth about Emmy's kids, then everyone will know, and so many lives will be ruined. My children's image of their father will be shattered, of their Aunt Emmy. Luke is a hero to Owen. I don't even want to think about how much this would hurt him. And what about Emmy's kids? They've done nothing wrong. They didn't choose how they came into this world. And I don't want to hurt them. Yes, right now, I'm angry at Tom. A week ago, I saw him put his hand on Sophie's back, and I wanted to knock his teeth out. But even he doesn't deserve to find out he's been dreaming about his half-sister all this time. I don't know what to do. I've looked the other way for too long, allowing my husband and his best friend to humiliate me like this. I thought I could live with it, but this whole thing with Tom and Sophie has pushed me to the breaking point. Update 1, I didn't expect my post to get such a response. I was even a little scared that someone from my family or our social circle might find it, especially when someone told me the post appeared on Facebook. But as far as I can tell, none of my loved ones have seen it. I want to thank all the kind commenters who wished me strength. And to those who were angry about my indecisiveness, I get it. But I was operating under complete uncertainty, and the stakes were too high. It felt like no matter what choice I made, something was bound to go wrong. For the past 5 years, I've run through hundreds of scenarios in my head, trying to imagine how everything could play out if I finally decided to act. For everyone waiting for an update, I have one. I wrote that I was planning to do a secret DNA test, that I had already chosen that path. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to do it, and now I regret it because I missed my chance. It felt like it would be going too far, doing that behind a child's back. From an ethical standpoint, it's also very questionable. On the advice of many commenters, I spoke with a lawyer, and she also advised against it. She said that in the event of a divorce, regardless of the results, such a step would look bad for me. But damn it, I regret not doing it secretly, because I really need this. I desperately need to know, and I still don't know for sure. I also thought about telling Sophie everything in secret, But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that would also be too much. What right do I have to plant such ideas about her father in her head without talking to him first? So, in the end, I talked to Luke and Emmy. Many of you advised it, and I decided to go for it. I told them we needed to have a serious talk. It felt wrong to go to just one of them first, because then one would retell the conversation to the other in their own way before I had a chance to speak. I wanted them both to hear everything I had bottled up at the same time. When all the kids were at school, I laid out all my suspicions. I made it clear how much I loved them both, but a whole chain of small details had made me notice the similarities between Luke and Emmy's kids. And I didn't even tell everything in that post. For example, Luke used to sleepwalk, and so do Sophie, Tom, and Adam. I repeated over and over how dear they are to me, how I don't want to believe it. But the thought crept into my mind a long time ago, how I brushed it aside. But now that there's this chemistry between Tom and Sophie, I had to ask the question directly. I asked if they had ever crossed the line, if Luke had ever cheated on me, if there was even the slightest chance that any of Emmy's children were his. I could barely hold back tears, but they reacted exactly as I expected. Their answers were flawless and so rehearsed that I don't even know if they were sincere or if it was the most powerful gaslighting show ever. Emmy was more upset than Luke, at least outwardly. She was angry, offended by the mere suspicion. Luke just looked devastated. Maybe they were just acting, but somehow they had reasonable answers for everything I said. They asked questions I didn't have clear answers to. I never minded them spending time alone before, so why was it suddenly a problem now? Our whole family has always seen Emmy and her kids as part of the family. And I myself praised Luke for being a father figure to them in the absence of a real one. So why am I now saying it's a bad thing? What exactly do I want? How could I even think such a thing about them? And why did I stay silent for so many years? Luke was more understanding of my feelings than Emmy. He listened to me, or at least pretended to. But Emmy looked like my words were a betrayal. In the end, I apologized several times, although I'm not entirely sure I did anything wrong. Luke also apologized for anything that might have seemed like a sign of infidelity. I asked Emmy directly, if the father of your children isn't Luke, then who is? She immediately cut me off, saying it was none of my business. And it was clear that after my accusations, she was in no mood to tell me anything. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I snapped. I said that after everything we've done for her and her kids, she could at least share that information. Maybe she even owed it to me. I regretted those words as soon as they left my lips, but Emmy screamed back that I had never done anything for her, that it was Luke and her parents who had been helping her all this time, not me. I don't think that's true, but maybe I really did make her feel that way. Luke did his best to calm her down, but the atmosphere in the room was electric. I just don't know. It's driving me crazy. There is a way to know for sure. Not about the cheating, but about the paternity of Emmy's children. So I asked Luke, for my peace of mind, for our daughter's sake, for our family's sake, to take a paternity test. I added that I know how he feels about such things, that he doesn't like or trust them, but I really need this. I saw the pain in Luke's eyes. Maybe he was acting, but he genuinely looked like he was terribly hurt that I still didn't trust him, that his word of fidelity was no longer a guarantee. But still, with great reluctance, he agreed to take a DNA test. Unfortunately, Emmy did not, and that's where we hit a dead end. I was afraid of this. Emmy was furious at the very fact that I brought it up and made it unequivocally clear that I would not get a DNA sample from her children, and in fact, told me to back off. more than once and in various ways. I pressed Luke, but he was pretty useless. He tried to persuade Emmy, but she wouldn't even listen. And then when I kept pushing, he just shrugged because he can't force her to take a test if she refuses. It's a dead end. Believe me, I've looked into it. I've read a lot about it and consulted a lawyer. The problem is that, theoretically, Luke could go to court to demand a paternity test for Tom and the others. But to do that, he would essentially have to claim that he slept with Emmy and believes her children are his. That would be the official version of events he'd have to stick to. But Luke flatly denies that anything happened between them. He swears he never cheated on me. Whether he's being honest is another question. But in that case, he'd have to officially admit something he's not prepared to admit. He is absolutely certain that Emmy's children are not his, and he has no intention of seeking custody of them. Therefore, no judge would force Emmy to provide her children's DNA samples. Besides, Tom is old enough for his consent to have legal weight. If both he and Emmy refuse to participate in testing, Luke simply doesn't have a case, unless he tries to target one of Emmy's younger children, like one of the twins. But he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to drag his best friend to court to prove something he says he already knows, that they are not his children. Luke is asking me to let this go, asking me to just trust him, because if I keep digging, everything will fall apart. And according to my lawyer, it's unrealistic anyway. To establish paternity, Luke would first have to admit to the affair, and he's not going to do that. And if he did admit it, I wouldn't need to prove anything else. That would be all I need to know. I pressed him again about Tom and Sophie, saying I don't want them dating. Luke agreed, and as he said, Emmy is still against it too. Luke is going to talk to Tom and go into Papa Bear mode. Among other things, he'll remind Tom that in a couple of months he'll be 18, and then being intimate with Sophie would literally be a crime. I probably wouldn't actually press charges, because I know he would never do anything against Sophie's will. But I'm not above using the threat as leverage. Fortunately, neither is Luke. I asked if he would be willing, in theory, to steal a DNA sample from Tom to do a private test, but he was strongly against it. Like me, he considers it unethical. He also pointed out that if we did that and Emmy found out, our friendship would be over. And right now, in Luke's opinion, the situation is still salvageable. He believes that Emmy and I can reconcile and become friends again. I can see how much he wants that. But if I do a test behind her back and she finds out, she will explode, and I couldn't blame her. Although I would be very interested in the result. In the end, Luke went to Emmy's and stayed the night. I know, you're cringing and grabbing your head right now. Believe me, I was furious. We talked about it for a very long time, but he insisted he had to sort things out. So they spent the night together. Luke insists nothing happened. I didn't sleep a wink and bombarded him with messages. As far as I can tell, Emmy will cool down soon, but she needs a little time. Luke and I talked everything over when he came back the next morning. It was an emotional conversation, and in the end, we decided to take our kids, not Emmy's, and go to their grandparents for a few days. The trip was spontaneous, but we've done it before, and they were thrilled. I just really wanted our family to be together for a bit, away from Emmy's family, so to speak. I'm always happy to see Luke's parents. I'll call them Jim, 75, and Kate, 67. I know the internet is full of mother-in-law from hell stories, but that's not my life. With them, I feel safe. So safe that when they noticed how distant Luke and I had become, I finally gave in and told them about my fears. I told them how I'm tormented by the thought that Luke and Emmy are sleeping together and that maybe her children are his. And that's where things got interesting. When I said it out loud, Kate just gave Jim a meaningful look and sighed heavily. It turned out that Kate had similar doubts for years. She genuinely suspected that Luke and Emmy were closer than they let on, and that at some point, they had indeed crossed a line. Jim, on the other hand, refused to even entertain the thought. He always insisted that Kate was seeing things that weren't there. He maintains that Luke and Emmy are like brother and sister and would never do anything like that. Kate thinks he's too naive and that even if she and Jim accepted Emmy as their own daughter, it doesn't mean Luke actually saw her as a sister or that she saw him as a brother. But Jim stuck to his guns. They were always brother and sister. I immediately understood that they had had this conversation before, more than once. They were going in circles. Kate grew more and more irritated. She pointed out that adopted siblings are not real blood relatives, and if there was a mutual attraction between them, nothing stopped them from sleeping together. At that, Jim just sighed and left the conversation. So yes, Kate also secretly suspected that Emmy's children might be Luke's, and maybe that's why she always treated them like her own grandchildren. And to be clear, that never bothered me. It also didn't bother me that Kate hadn't shared these thoughts with me. She had no proof, and in our adult lives, she saw far less intimacy between Luke and Emmy than I did. As for the kids, they're more or less okay. I don't know what Emmy told hers, but it seems the official story is that she and I had a conflict and we just need a break. That's how Luke and I explained it to our kids when they started asking questions. Luke sided with me and cut the conversation short, saying it was none of their business. I don't know if Emmy stuck to that version, but our kids have phones and social media. They were probably still talking. Over the past couple of days, I think mine told Emmy's kids what's going on, and if Emmy had told them something different, they would have passed it on to my kids, especially since we know how close Sophie and Tom are. I tried to talk to Sophie about it in more detail, but I chose a bad moment. She dismissed my arguments and decided my reluctance to talk about Tom was related to my fight with Emmy. She insisted she's not dating Tom. How true that is, I don't know, but she's going to continue being close friends with him. Although she's usually an obedient child, she drew a hard line here. To be honest, I can't reasonably forbid them from talking or being friends. They've known each other for years. Luke is on my side that they can't date, but he doesn't support the idea of forbidding them from just spending time together. If something serious happens in the next few days, I'll let you know. But mostly, right now, I'm just cursing myself for not secretly doing a DNA test, at least for my own peace of mind. Because now it feels like I've completely lost the only chance I had to get a clear, undeniable answer. Update 2, I didn't expect to have another update so quickly, but after posting the first one, I thought a lot about my children. Ultimately, I decided that no matter what, I had to warn Sophie about the situation, and I had to do it immediately. To hell with Luke, even if it means all the kids find out, I don't care. She needs to know what she might be getting into. We got back from her grandparents' house last night, and this morning I dropped everyone off at their schools, saving Sophie for last. But I just drove past her school, saying we needed to talk. It's the kind of phrase that makes any teenager's blood run cold. But I immediately clarified that she hadn't done anything wrong. She just needed to know the truth about why Emmy and I had a falling out and why her relationship with Tom is impossible. I very carefully explained that because of Luke's closeness with Emmy and how much Tom looks like him, I had started to suspect that maybe Luke and Emmy had been intimate at some point. If that's true, and if there's even the slightest chance that Tom's father is Luke, then it's a serious problem. Sophie was silent the whole time, and even after I finished, she didn't say anything for a long time. Then, finally, she said that we needed to meet with Tom and discuss it with him too. I didn't object, so she texted him. They're both skipping school today, but Sophie has excellent grades, and the situation is really important, so I'm letting it slide. Tom came over, and Sophie had me tell him the same thing. I apologized to him if I had in any way implied he wasn't good enough for my daughter, and I apologized to both of them for not telling them the truth sooner. Tom and Sophie exchanged a strange, knowing look, and that's when they blew my mind. Sophie spoke first, and Tom backed her up. They told me that they actually already knew about Luke and Emmy, or at least had suspected it for a long time. It turns out Tom had overheard some suspicious conversations, and he had also heard sounds of intimacy from Emmy's room, sounds he would gladly forget forever, but all signs pointed to her lover being Luke. Tom kept it to himself for a long time, and then in January, he finally shared his suspicions with Sophie. She agreed with him. She had also noticed a strange closeness between her father and Tom's mother. They both concluded that Luke was most likely cheating. They agreed that because of Kylie's rare allergy, Luke could very well be her father. And if Kylie is his daughter, then Emmy's other children could be his too. Tom himself could be Luke's child. Their conclusions completely matched mine. And so, Sophie and Tom came up with a little plan. As it turns out, they are not in love with each other. They never were. They are still just best friends. But they had the same feeling I did. They didn't want to blow up our entire family and social structure without more direct evidence, which is what Tom has been working on all this time. And although Sophie really wanted to tell me the truth, she hesitated because she knew it would break me. She had no idea I had been suffering in silence for so long. Sophie apologized for not sharing her suspicions sooner. We both cried, to be honest, and I let her know that it wasn't her fault and that I love her very much. So, the bottom line is that Sophie and Tom already know they might be half-siblings and were never actually planning to be a couple. It was their plan to rock the boat, to force Luke and Emmy to take some kind of action instead of continuing to make a fool out of me. I think it was also their way of getting revenge for the affair. Teenagers can be vengeful, so they came up with the idea of pretending they wanted to date. All the flirting I saw, all the touching, it turns out it was all for show, for Luke, for Emmy, or for both of them. It was meant to make them nervous, to make them jump up and forbid them from dating themselves. But when I forbade it, it threw them off a bit. They couldn't understand why I was more worried than the culprits themselves. That's when they suspected that maybe I knew everything too. That time when Tom directly asked me about it, she had no idea I had been suffering in silence for so long. Sophie apologized for not sharing her suspicions sooner. We both cried, to be honest, and I let her know that it wasn't her fault and that I love her very much. So, the bottom line is that Sophie and Tom already know they might be half-siblings and were never actually planning to be a couple. It was their plan to rock the boat, to force Luke and Emmy to take some kind of action instead of continuing to make a fool out of me. I think it was also their way of getting revenge for the affair. Teenagers can be vengeful, so they came up with the idea of pretending they wanted to date. All the flirting I saw, all the touching, it turns out it was all for show, for Luke, for Emmy, or for both of them. It was meant to make them nervous, to make them jump up and forbid them from dating themselves. But when I forbade it, it threw them off a bit. They couldn't understand why I was more worried than the culprits themselves. That's when they suspected that maybe I knew everything too. That time when Tom directly asked me why he couldn't date Sophie was his attempt to test if I was in on it. Maybe I shouldn't be so surprised. Sophie and Tom have always been close friends and they share everything. Maybe I should have been a little more suspicious of how secretly they handled everything. But honestly, I'm just so incredibly happy they're not dating. Yes, theoretically, they could be lying to throw me off, but they seem to have known for a long time that they were likely related, and they didn't flinch for a second when I told them. We even had a little laugh when Tom joked that he was a bit offended I was so vehemently against him dating my daughter. I half jokingly asked, "So you don't think she's gorgeous?" And Tom, sweet as ever, just shrugged. "I do, but my English teacher is gorgeous too, and I'm not asking her out on a date." Anyway, now the main question is what to do next. We need to decide. I'll say one thing. What a relief it is to have told Sophie everything. It feels like an elephant that was sitting on my chest has finally lifted one foot. The fact that she's on my side now, along with Tom, means so much to me. And even though I now have almost 100% confirmation that Luke is sleeping with Emmy, to be honest, I already knew it. So now it all comes down to how to proceed. Tom has already offered to give a DNA sample so I can compare it with Luke's. Both he and Sophie told me not to tell Luke and Emmy about it, and I completely agree with them. They are both on my side, and that means everything to me. Tom is also trying to set up a camera in Emmy's room to catch her with Luke, and Sophie told me straight up that I should divorce her father. After she said that, everything became crystal clear. She's right. Update 3 first, a few answers to comments. I don't have the DNA test results yet. It could take weeks, but now that I know Sophie isn't in danger of dating her potential half-brother, the pressure is off. I'll get back to it, but honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter if Luke is the father of those kids. I highly doubt that my father-in-law is having an affair with Emmy. At worst, he might know or at least suspect the truth about her and Luke. But it's also quite possible that he simply refuses to believe they could do such a thing. I wrote about this vaguely to maintain anonymity, but simply put, Jim and Emmy are both quite white, while Kate and Luke are not. If Jim were the father of Emmy's children, they would look different. Despite the flood of comments calling me spineless, naive, and now a whole stream of accusations that my story is fake. Well, it's the internet. What can you expect? But Luke is far from the first man to live a double life. There were also very kind, supportive words, and I'm truly grateful for them. So, the most important thing, I already mentioned this in the comments, but our little team has sort of brought my mother-in-law over to our side. I say, sort of, because Sophie and Tom were going to talk to her and ask for help with the DNA test. And on my lawyer's advice, I am not officially involved in this. I told Sophie I didn't approve of the idea, and she promised she wouldn't do anything. My mother-in-law hasn't texted me about it herself, although we are in touch. More on that later. The point is, I can honestly say I'm not aware of any DNA test. It's a loophole, and more good news. While I was digging through papers in preparation for the divorce, I discovered one important detail. The deed to the house has my name on it. Luke's name is not on it. I bought the house. We always planned to add Luke to the deed later, but we never got around to it, and then we forgot about it completely. It was my lawyer, let's call her Paige, who pointed this out to me, and for me, it was like finding a winning lottery ticket. I don't even know where I'd be right now without Paige. We've known each other since college, and I came to her for help with my hat in my hand. This week, she's been more than just a lawyer to me. She's been the real friend I desperately needed. The thing is, Paige isn't our lawyer. Not for me and Luke. We have a family lawyer who has helped us out in the past. There was a conflict with the law a few years ago, But that's another story. Paige is a specialist in family law. She handles divorces. Luke remembers her from college, knows she became a lawyer, but he doesn't know she's a divorce lawyer. So I can invite her for coffee, supposedly just to reminisce, and he won't suspect a thing. Turns out he's not the only one who can hide someone right under their spouse's nose in the guise of a friend. All right, on to the update. The last time I looked at Luke's phone was 3 months ago, around the time Sophie and Tom started their fake romance. I didn't find anything. I knew how to check recently deleted photos, and there were none back then. But thanks to the comments, I now knew how to check recently deleted messages. And so, while Luke was asleep, I took his phone, went downstairs, and looked in the deleted folder. And you know what? I'm glad I did it. But at the same time, I wish I hadn't, because now it feels like there's a hole burned through my chest. Yes, there was a deleted chat with Emmy. Recent messages where they discussed the conflict between me and her. She called me the problem, and Luke tried to calm her down without defending me one bit. They both hinted that they had been expecting this, apparently meaning me accusing them of something, but hoped it wouldn't happen. The conversation itself and the fact that it was deleted already looked suspicious, but there were no direct admissions. I scrolled up a couple of days before our fight. The messages became more flirty. And then I saw it 5 days before I confronted them. Emmy sent Luke a photo. Topless, no bra, no shirt, a bare-chested selfie. Guys, I started crying. I knew it was true. I knew it in my gut. But seeing the proof, it was like a red-hot knife twisting in my side. And what's worse is that Emmy's breasts have always been bigger than mine. I exited the messages and checked the deleted photos in Luke's gallery. Of course, the same photo was there. And others. Emmy topless. Emmy naked in different poses to show herself off. There were also photos of them together, hugging, pressing against each other like a couple. In some photos, she was naked. In others, they both were. And videos. Emmy sent Luke a video message where she was topless, and I had to hear her voice. That sickly sweet, cloying tone that made my stomach turn. She said she decided to record a quick clip for him to make his day better. In several videos, she called him sweetie, and when I heard that, I almost threw up. I couldn't watch anymore. But about 5 minutes had passed, and some morbid need made me check his laptop too. I knew all his passwords and logged into his iCloud. And yes, it was the same thing there, only more. There were emails, long emails between them. I didn't have the strength to read past the first few lines of one of them. But I saw Luke write, "Our children." Countless selfies of Emmy, naked, topless. Selfies of them together. Videos where Emmy seemed to be pleasuring herself. There were also recordings of them being intimate with both of them. Tom once suggested trying to hide a camera in Emmy's room. But damn it, there was no need. Luke had been keeping a whole archive of their filth right under my nose all this time. I scrolled and scrolled, and there was no end in sight. There was so much of it from over the years. There were also photos of Emmy's children. One video where Kylie and the twins are playing as infants. And you can hear Luke's and Emmy's voices in the background. There were even old photos of Luke and Emmy, seemingly as teenagers. I broke down. All these years, I had convinced myself I was wrong, that it just couldn't be happening. But it was true. I know no one forced me to watch all of it, but I'm still terribly hurt by what I saw. And in that moment, I just had to do something. So I did. I called my lawyer, that incredible woman. It was the middle of the night. I had to call twice, but she answered. I woke her up, but when I said it was urgent and asked her to come over, She agreed. I also asked her to prepare the documents. She said they had been ready since the moment I first contacted her. While I was waiting for her, I used Luke's laptop to log into all the necessary accounts and change the password so he couldn't remotely cut off our access to his collection. When Paige arrived, I went out to her car. For about 30 minutes, I just sat there in the passenger seat and sobbed. She was incredibly patient. Then I handed her Luke's phone and his laptop with all the information she needed. She warned me that it could technically be considered theft. I asked her to forward and print everything she could and then return the devices, because I just couldn't bring myself to do it. She agreed. I went back into the house, and while everyone was asleep, I started packing Luke's things. At one point, Owen got up to use the bathroom and asked what I was doing. I said I was just cleaning. Luke stirred a couple of times while I was in the bedroom, but he never woke up. I put all his things in trash bags and loaded them into the car. Then I woke him up, telling him to come outside with me. He was half asleep, confused, but he noticed some of his things were missing. I ignored his questions and just told him to follow me. He did. When we got to the car, I pulled out the divorce papers and officially served him. At that moment, it started to dawn on him what was happening, and he tried to change my mind. He tried to be affectionate, gentle, repeating that he loved me, that there was never anything between him and Emmy. He begged me not to destroy our family. 2 weeks ago, I might have broken. He was a master manipulator. His gaslighting was God tier. But now I see everything clearly. I didn't tell him what I knew. I didn't tell him what I saw. I just said it was over between us. Then he took a different approach. He refused to leave, said the kids were his too, and that even if we were breaking up, I had no right to decide they would live with me. That's when I very calmly showed him the deed, reminding him that the house was in my name. And I added that under no circumstances would my children live with Emmy. He argued for a little while longer, but eventually decided to be the bigger person and not make a scene. At that moment, I didn't care where he went. Before he left, he asked about his phone and laptop. I just waved it off, saying they were in one of the bags, buying myself a little more time. I couldn't sleep until morning. I cried again. Then I realized I would have to wake the kids up earlier than usual and explain everything as best I could. Naturally, I woke Sophie up first. I told her I had kicked her father out and that I had found proof of his affair on his devices. I didn't specify what kind of proof, and she didn't ask. Then I woke up the others and gently told them that Dad would be living somewhere else now. I don't know where, but things will be different now. Louise asked if we were getting a divorce. I couldn't lie. I said yes. Owen asked when they would see their dad again, and I wanted to howl. Sophie was a huge help. She urged the younger ones that right now, they needed to support Mom, and we could think about Dad later. I knew I couldn't turn the kids against their father. Paige had warned me about that too. So I only told Sophie that the affair was confirmed because she already knew everything. But while the kids were getting ready for school, Owen came up to me and asked directly, "Is it because of Emmy? Is Dad going to be with her now instead of you?" I couldn't answer, but I guess that was an answer in itself. After sending the kids to school, I immediately moved on to the next step, calling to have the locks on the house changed. I knew Luke would be back for his devices soon, but fortunately, Paige managed to return them before he showed up. Her visit was very short. She said it was all done and she had copies of everything we would need in court. As expected, about an hour later, Luke appeared at the door demanding to know where his laptop and phone were. I had already put them back in the bedroom, as if they had never disappeared, and just said he had forgotten them. He insisted I had said they were in one of the bags. I just shrugged. I guess I was mistaken. He took the devices and tried to reason with me again, but I just pointed to the door. I knew the kids would start coming home from school soon, and I think he was deliberately stalling to see them, but I was firm. I started screaming again and threw him out. I'm still in monstrous pain from everything I saw. I don't know if he suspects that someone copied the data from his devices or if he realized I might have seen it all, but he didn't say anything. When he left, I burst into tears again. I spoke to my mother-in-law that same evening. It turns out Luke did show up at his parents' house, which was a surprise to me. I was sure he would go straight to Emmy's, but apparently even he understands how suspicious that would look to the kids and doesn't want to rock the boat. Maybe he understands that I'm more likely to let the kids see their grandmother than Emmy, so he wants to use this chance to give them his version of events. But that's not going to happen. Kate already told me what he said to her and Jim, that I'm supposedly having a nervous breakdown, that he wants to help me, but my paranoia is supposedly making me aggressive and hysterical. I was never aggressive. I just pushed him away when he tried to hug me. That's all. And what's especially funny is that he didn't mention Emmy at all in the conversation with his parents. He didn't even frame it as me mistakenly thinking he was having an affair with her, even though that's exactly what he was trying to sell me. To his parents, he didn't say a word about Emmy. Kate noticed that right away. She believes me, but Jim, now he doesn't know what to believe. According to Kate, he looked very, very upset by what he heard from both sides. As for Emmy, she's been silent. Tom told Sophie that Emmy is acting like nothing is happening, although she's clearly on edge. When her kids ask her something, she responds in the same vein, that I'm having a nervous breakdown and I'm pushing everyone away, both Luke and her. She doesn't say anything about the cheating accusations, just blames it all on me. Emmy herself hasn't tried to contact me, and I haven't tried to contact her since our fight. I haven't explained much to the kids, just said that Luke, Emmy, and I are having disagreements. But I've made it clear that this is not a question of my mental health. Honestly, I think they've all figured it out by now. Sophie remains my rock, and I'm trying to be one for her and the others. And Tom is still our man on the inside. What I regret most right now is the stress all of this is causing the children. I knew it would happen, but it still had to be done. My life has fallen apart, but when I think about it, it wasn't my life to begin with. Update 4 in my last post. Many of you criticized Paige. Well, you're going to like this update. It turns out you weren't the only ones unhappy with her. As for the house being in my name, yes, it's not an absolute victory, but Paige is confident that combined with the fact that I paid the mortgage, I have a very good chance. Of course, the house could formally be treated as marital property, but I'm still going all the way and filing for primary custody with supervised visits. I'm playing hardball. Some of you are also worried if I should continue posting these updates. As long as it's anonymous, I'm fine. Even if someone I know recognizes me, I haven't used any real names, locations, or anything like that. As for the laptop, Paige even admitted it's a gray area, but technically, I gave her permission, and she only did what I could have done myself. I just didn't want to go through watching all of that myself. Paige drew up the divorce papers after my very first visit. Me serving them to Luke was more of a symbolic act. Later, she contacted him herself to officially serve the documents and request his lawyer's contact information. But before he could respond, I pulled a little trick. I contacted our family lawyer, the one who had always represented me and Luke throughout our marriage. He's the one who got us out of the conflict with the WAP. Let's call him Zach. And unlike what some commenters suggested, I can't just run around town consulting with every lawyer to block Luke from hiring them. That's considered bad faith, and judges don't like it. But this was Zach. He was already our lawyer, both mine and Luke's. I had as much right to him as Luke did, and I just got there first. So now I've managed to lock down our family lawyer for myself. I met with him and Paige, and my God, they cannot stand each other. Zach repeated many of the same complaints that were in the comments. He claims Paige's actions are in a gray area and suggested I hire him to handle the divorce. This caused a conflict because Paige is a divorce lawyer. That's her specialty. So going forward, I plan to consult with both of them. Zach, by the way, thinks my posts are actually a good thing because they can prove I'm of sound mind while Luke and Emmy are trying to claim otherwise. Overall, I feel better. I've started talking about my situation with a friend in real life, the mom of one of Sophie's friends. I have therapy sessions scheduled, and I also plan to start family therapy. When the kids ask what's going on, I just tell them that their father and I are having adult problems and they have nothing to worry about. That worked for about a day. Sophie warned me that they were going to confront me, and they did. They asked if Dad had cheated on me with Emmy. Obviously, they had been discussing it among themselves, and maybe for a long time, maybe even longer than I thought. Maybe they had suspected something before. And again, despite having absolute proof, I still hesitated to tell them the whole truth. Let me explain why. Of course, I wouldn't tell them about all the filth I found. I would just say that I found messages between Luke and Emmy confirming their affair. But for anyone except Sophie, that wouldn't be enough. I know Mike Carter. He's my sweet, curious little boy. He would definitely want to see those messages. So when the kids asked me directly if their father had cheated on me, I just said, I believe he did. With all the sincerity I could muster, I think they believe me. Tom and Sophie haven't stopped texting, and as far as I understand, doubts are also arising among Emmy's children. Is it really me who's going crazy, or is their mom just too close to my husband? It seems my poor father-in-law, Jim, is slowly starting to realize that what he refused to believe is not just possible, it's already happening. I haven't shown him or Kate any letters or anything else. They're currently housing Luke, so we have almost no contact. But I had one phone conversation with Kate. We just wished each other well, and it was nice. In the background, I heard shouting. Kate quickly went outside, but I still heard Jim yelling at Luke. And he never, ever yells. He's the calmest person I know. And on one hand, I'm worried about him, but on the other, I feel a sense of relief that his eyes are finally starting to open. According to Kate, Luke still vehemently denies everything. However, when he found out I had intercepted Zach, he was furious. And I admit, that gave me some satisfaction. The test results came in. Sophie and Tom took a DNA test to find out if they are really blood siblings. Surprise! According to the results, they are not related at all. They share no common genes. So for everyone who believed that Jim was the father of Emmy's children, this is direct proof that it's not true. Although I never believed that in the first place. Sophie now doubts the accuracy of the test and wants to do a second one to be sure. But I'm not particularly worried. I'm more just confused. I was sure Tom was Luke's son. He was too. Now we both don't know what to think. I know for a fact that the affair happened. It lasted for years. And from the letters, it's clear that Kylie is Luke's child. Or at least both he and Emmy are convinced of it. This means they were intimate at least 15 years ago. Now I'm just wondering, who is Tom's father then? He really does look a bit like Luke, but maybe it's just a coincidence. Anyway, things were quiet for a few days. And then she finally showed up, my best friend, Emmy. I am so glad I installed cameras all over the house. and you're about to understand why. Of course, Emmy showed up at my house and asked to talk. She was calm, not raising her voice. Assuming she was there on Luke's behalf, I said I didn't want to talk to her and asked her to leave. She didn't leave, but she didn't make a scene either. She just insisted that we needed to talk. None of the kids were home. The cameras were not only outside, but also inside, and I also discreetly started recording on my phone. In the end, I let her in. I don't know if she realized she was being recorded. We sat on the couch, and she got straight to the point. It turns out she and Luke know, or suspect, that I obtained incriminating evidence from his laptop. Emmy accused me of snooping through his devices and declared that whatever I found, there was none of my business and I had to delete everything. That's all she said. No apology, no admission of guilt, not a drop of responsibility for her actions. Hell, maybe she really did know she was being recorded because she never once directly named what sensitive content was on Luke's laptop. I couldn't hold back. I let her have it. I asked how she had the nerve to demand anything from me. Why did she and Luke do it? Why did they decide to betray me for years? I asked the question that had been tormenting me for so long. As I expected, I got no answer. Emmy acted as if she couldn't even hear me. She seemed tense, panicked, but she was trying hard to hide it. She ignored my words and just kept demanding over and over that I delete all the content from Luke's laptop. She said that if I want to divorce Luke, that's my business, but I shouldn't drag her into it. That's when I really started shaking with anger. I held it in, but I snapped back that she was already neck deep in this mess. Emmy kept repeating her demand. I asked her directly, why should I do that? For what reason? Emmy became aggressive, raised her voice, tried to intimidate me, but I stood my ground. She said it wasn't about me and that I should just do as she says, that it was very important. I asked why again. No answer. I asked, did Luke send you, or did you come on your own? Again, silence, like talking to a brick wall. Then I told her she needed to leave. As I feared, she refused. She said she wouldn't leave until I deleted everything she found in front of her. I couldn't help but laugh. I said, no, that's not going to happen. And that's when she really started to panic. At one point, she jumped up, ran into another room, and grabbed my laptop. Before I could do anything, she threw it on the floor with all her might. I have no idea what she thought that would accomplish. She probably just broke down from panic. Of course, I still have all the files. Now I just need to buy a new laptop. Unfortunately, that moment wasn't caught on camera, but it's okay. I have backups of everything important. At that moment, I was more afraid of what else she might do. Emmy looked like she was about to snap completely. I again, very calmly, said that she needed to leave, or I would call the police. She refused again, just kept repeating that I should forget this whole affair story and divorce Luke without trying to prove he had a romance. At that moment, I just looked at her, at the woman I once considered one of my closest friends. I said I owed her nothing, but she owed her children the truth. They have the right to know who their father is, who Luke really is to them. Emmy instantly tensed up and replied that it was none of my business, that I don't understand anything about her family, and I should stay away. She kept going back to the same mantra over and over. I can divorce Luke, but I have no right to claim they had an affair. I just said I don't need her permission to conduct my divorce as I see fit and demanded again that she leave. She became more and more desperate, and her anger reached the point where she physically attacked me. I didn't expect her to actually go for it. I'm not much of a fighter, but I know anatomy pretty well, and I know where a person's weak spots are. She inflicted some pretty serious damage on me, but I managed to push her away. That moment was definitely caught on camera, and all the audio was on my phone's recording. After that, she finally left, and I immediately filed a police report. I had a strange feeling she might pull something like this, and I wanted to get ahead of her. I managed to compose myself by the time I had to pick up the kids. Although I downplayed the situation, I didn't lie to them about where the black eye came from. For their own safety, I told them to stay away from Emmy. I sent the video of the incident to Paige and Zach, along with photos of my injuries before I treated them. They also printed out the letters that said Kylie was Luke's child. Honestly, I think Emmy has just completely ruined everything for herself. I still don't understand what she was thinking. Was she protecting Luke? Was this his idea? Or does she just not want everyone to know she's the mistress of a married man, trying to cover her own ass? As if people don't already suspect. The more I talk to people in our circle and share even superficial details, the more I hear that many suspected Luke of cheating but had no proof. Maybe Emmy just doesn't want her kids to know who their father is. That generally fits the picture, but I'm still not sure about Tom. I didn't ask Emmy specifically about him. Update 5. Hey guys, it's been a tough week. A lot has happened. I don't want to get into all the details, so I'll try to be brief. I know I usually can't stop writing, but this time it will be shorter. Luke now has a lawyer. I don't know him, but he's already met with Zach and Paige. To everyone who said I should have turned Emmy into the police, you might be right. If I had shown the video, it might have worked, but I just sent it to my lawyers. Maybe it's stupid, but I guess there's still a part of me that tries to protect the people I once loved and be softer on them than they deserve. But things have been on hold for the past few days because Jim had a heart attack. He passed away. I saw Luke. I saw Emmy. I saw her children at the funeral. It was the first time we were all together again since this all started. No one discussed anything. Only Emmy briefly apologized for what happened. And, she seemed sincere. I didn't say that to her, of course, but still. She, Luke, and Kate were devastated. I was too. We all agreed. No fights, no talk of divorce. It was a day of truce. Only Jim, only saying goodbye. Luke and I talked a little about him. I spent a lot of time with the kids, took a couple of days off work. Luke also saw the kids twice, before and after the funeral. I was there. It was peaceful, at my request, and Sophie's. No one mentioned Emmy. Luke didn't try to pull any tricks. I think he really misses them and hates that he can't see them now because of his own damn fault. The kids, of course, are also grieving, both for their grandfather's death and for the fact that they can't be with their father like they used to. I don't think any of them blame me, but that's not the main thing at all. Carter has slept with me for 3 nights in a row. I'll share more when I gather my strength and have the energy for details. The person who suggested Kate lied about the test was right. She never sent it in. She admitted it to me herself. She said she couldn't do it, that she was uncomfortable going behind her son's back. But she was comfortable lying to me to protect him, until she felt ashamed, and then she confessed. Under the current circumstances, I'm not mad at her, but I won't trust her anymore. As far as I know, Luke still doesn't know the test was ever planned. But now, Tom could still be his son. He probably is. My lawyers finally finished carefully reviewing Luke and Emmy's correspondence, and they definitely found what Emmy was so afraid of me seeing. Now, I fully understand why she was in such a panic. It's related to why Luke and Emmy didn't make their relationship official. They did something very, very bad. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I should even talk about it, even in an anonymous post online. I haven't even sorted out my own thoughts about what they did, especially with everything else that's happening. So for now, I can't decide if I should talk about it directly. I'm sorry. I know you wanted specifics, but please try to understand. Paige agreed with me. When in doubt, it's better not to publish. I told my lawyers to put it aside for now. I'm in a state where I just can't decide what to do with it, whether to use it at all. Honestly, I just feel awful. It's very hard not to blame myself for Jim. I can only guess that Luke and Emmy blame themselves too. I know they are bad people. I don't forgive them. But all of this has torn them apart just as much as it has me. And I think all three of us feel that the divorce could have triggered the stress that ultimately contributed to Jim's death. He already had heart problems. But I especially blame myself for showing him the proof of the affair just days before he died. That will be a weight on my soul forever. Even if I shouldn't blame myself, I still will. I'll write again when I can. I'm sorry. I'll answer comments as I'm able. Update 6. Hello everyone. This might be my last update for a while. I'm seeing a therapist now, as are my children. And from what I've heard, Emmy's children have started seeing one too, which is good. So maybe I should focus on healthier ways to express my feelings. Nevertheless, I discussed these posts with my therapist, and she said that anonymous venting online can be helpful up to a certain point. If I ever share my story again, I might choose different platforms. I haven't decided yet. I also met with the judge. Many were worried that these posts could be used against me in court. The short answer is no, they won't. The long answer, since the posts are anonymous, there's legally no risk of libel or defamation. I've changed enough minor details, and all the names are fake. These records are irrelevant to the case and will not be part of the official record. So I can continue to publish them as long as they don't concern the court proceedings themselves, although I think the judge would prefer I stop writing altogether. That's one of the reasons I probably will. Without going into detail, I did end up reporting what I learned about Luke and Emmy to the authorities. And as you can imagine, all hell broke loose. I knew I had to do it because after Jim's death, Emmy and Luke drastically changed their tactics. They started insisting that Luke and I had always had an open marriage, that there was no cheating, and that his relationship with Emmy couldn't be considered a violation. And as if by magic, this whole story appeared right after Jim's death. He was, as far as I know, the only person who knew the whole truth and would have definitely intervened. But now that they didn't have to fear his reaction, they decided they could prove that I supposedly knew everything and approve. I guess when I didn't report it right away, they thought I wasn't aware and started lying. But I knew, and I did report it. Now they are in deep shit. Unfortunately, this means it all got out to the children. Rumors and truth spread fast, and there was no way they wouldn't hear about it. I personally talked to Sophie and Tom because I knew they would find out anyway. The others found out too. Tom was in shock. I was just relaying information, but I still felt awful. I wanted to comfort him, but there was little I could do. Poor Kylie took it incredibly hard. They say she had several breakdowns, and then she tried to run away. I know she tried to run away because she came to me, to my house, asking for shelter. And I had to send her back. I knew why I had to do it, but honestly, everything in me wanted to just say screw them all and let her stay with me, against Emmy's will. But no, I had to give her back. And honestly, nothing in this whole story has been harder for me than that moment. I know it wasn't my fault, but I still feel like I betrayed her. Sophie is furious with her father, especially after he and Emmy made Kylie go back to her. This has hit Sophie and Kylie the hardest. Luke wanted to see Sophie again, and she refused. She just wouldn't come out of her room. Technically, I was supposed to let him see her. I asked her to come out. She refused. So, in my opinion, I tried. This was after Kylie's escape, And when Luke started insisting I make Sophie come out, I'm not proud of it, but I screamed at him and threw him out the door. I was at my boiling point. And through all of this, my future ex-husband and his mistress are still acting like I'm the villain. Luke and Emmy are angry at me, and that's putting it mildly. They have no right to be, but they are angry anyway. I now have a restraining order against Emmy because I was sure she would come to my house after everything, and she did. After I reported them, and before Kylie came to me, Emmy showed up at our house when the kids were home, banging on the door and screaming, furious at me for what I had done. But I don't know what she expected. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, Emmy was gone. As usual, they were useless. When Kylie came to me for refuge, Emmy came running too, but I didn't let her in until she called the cops herself. I was determined to only let one of them in, and Emmy was not setting foot in my house. I explained everything to the police, but as usual, it didn't matter. Later, Emmy started trashing me on social media, portraying me as a kidnapper. I clarified the situation without going into unnecessary detail, although it was very tempting. Luke also gave me a whole lecture when we saw each other, but I just kept interrupting him and throwing facts at him. Apparently, after we stopped living together, I learned to recognize his bullshit, which I used to swallow without question. He always sounds so smart, reasonable, and gentle, but in fact, he's just spewing hot air, constantly dodging the point. Honestly, I'm furious at what he's done to the kids, all of them, especially Kylie. I want to adopt her. I know I can't, but I really want to. Kate and I also had a long talk. As far as I understand, she didn't know anything, and she's genuinely sorry she lied to me. Trust won't be rebuilt quickly, but I understand she was also put in a terrible situation. Now that a lot has come to light, she's a complete wreck herself, and I feel sorry for her. Besides, if Emmy loses custody, which is quite possible, I'll need help. I can't take all the kids in. I just don't have the space. Kate will have to take some of them. So I'm trying to give her a chance to earn back my trust, even if it's out of necessity. I don't know what will happen in the long term, but if things go as planned, Luke won't even get visitation rights with my children. We'll find out soon. Who the father of Emmy's children is will be officially recorded. All I know is that he and Emmy were always sure Kylie was his daughter, although they never did a test. And as far as I can tell, Emmy hasn't been with anyone besides Luke for a long time. For the record, Kate is still supporting Emmy financially, or rather, supporting her children. I don't care about that. If Emmy loses custody, that support will disappear automatically. As for how and why Luke and Emmy got together, I've pieced together what I could from their correspondence. Emmy was abused as a child, and Luke was the only person she felt safe with. When they were in school, their intimate relationship was a very bad idea, and they both knew the reason why long before they made that choice. As for the lie about being like brother and sister, it seems that emotionally, they really did have that kind of bond, but they still slept with each other. After Tom was born, and the correspondence makes it clear that they both consider Tom their child, their bond became more romantic. Emmy calls Luke hers, and he says the same about her. I read everything very carefully, no matter how sick it made me. I just wanted to understand. Overall, I'm doing okay. And I feel a little guilty about that because everyone else is worse off now that the truth is out. My kids are unhappy, which means I'm unhappy. But I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I want them to see it. Luke and Emmy are suffering, and honestly, I can't say it makes me happy. But what did they expect? They played a monstrous game for decades, and it couldn't have been without consequences. Emmy's kids are suffering, especially Kylie. I would love to reach out to her again, but I can't, except through Tom, and he has to be very careful right now. Kate is also devastated. We're still not over Jim's death, and honestly, the situation with Kylie just tore my heart in half. But it seems I've passed the hardest point, and now I'm starting to feel better, because I'm finally choosing myself. Additional information from the post author: Luke and Emmy committed a specific crime that calls into question the safety of the children around them. That's all I can say. For this reason, Emmy may lose custody of her children. It is also related to the DNA tests. Due to the nature of the crime, they will be mandatory. Yes, I did meet with the judge at the same time as Luke and our lawyers, and I asked him if these posts were permissible. What's so hard to understand about that? I stated clearly that I cannot take all the children if Emmy loses custody. But Luke definitely won't be able to either. He is just as guilty as she is. Most likely, custody will go to Kate, but I will continue to help and provide housing. Kate won't object, and to them, I am far more than just their father's ex-wife. I am the mother of their half-siblings whom they have seen almost every day of their lives. That means something. Update 7: things are still going to hell. There have been a lot of comments and private messages from people who just wanted to know how I am. And I really appreciate that. Although I still can't say much. I showed this post to my lawyers before publishing, and it was approved by them. So, in the letters I found on Luke's laptop, he and Emmy referred to themselves as step-siblings. The timeline is still a bit unclear to me, but as it turned out, Jim had an affair with his student. She was around 20 at the time, and she got pregnant. Years later, her daughter became friends with Jim's son. Emmy was being abused in her parents' home, and Luke's whole family wanted to get her out of there, which eventually happened. That's when Jim told Luke and Emmy the truth. A couple more years passed, and they started sleeping together. Latest news: Kylie spent some time in a psychiatric facility. Tom discovered she had done something very reckless. Child Protective Services also decided she could not remain in Luke and Emmy's custody, so she is now living with Kate. Emmy was furious and, I was told, loudly complained for a long time that I had supposedly turned Kylie against her. In her rage, she made a number of threats. I was advised not to make contact myself, but Kylie has all my contact information, and I sent her a message promising that she can always come to me if she wants to. I think it's perfectly normal if she wants to. I won't reject her. My troubles didn't end there, and things only got worse after the test results came back. Everyone was tested. Now I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that Luke is the biological father of all 4 of Emmy's children. It doesn't change much at this point, but now I have official proof that he cheated on me. Luke still insists we had an open marriage. I wanted to use incest as one of the accusations against them, but there was a snag. They were both ordered to take tests, and according to the results, Luke and Emmy are not related. I don't understand how this is possible myself. Maybe Jim was wrong all this time. In any case, I have proof that they both believed it, but now they claim it was all part of their role-playing. And then Luke dealt me another blow. He demanded a DNA test for my children too. I hated him for that. They've been through enough, but he claims I also participated in an open marriage and the children's paternity would prove it. He was especially insistent on testing Sophie. I couldn't understand why, but now I think Luke knew something I didn't. Because Sophie's analysis results showed that Luke is not her father. And then Luke claimed that he had done this test many years ago to be sure. I was certain he was lying, that he had forged the results, but he produced a DNA test from 10 years ago, and it also said that Luke was not Sophie's father. Before anyone asks, no, I never had an affair. I did not cheat on Luke. I have no idea how this could have happened, and I can't find an explanation for it. I've requested another test, and it hasn't come back yet, but given the 2 results already received, I'm completely bewildered and scared. I don't know how this is possible, since I never cheated on Luke. I can only assume that something happened without my consent. As far as I know, I have never been assaulted, but there were a few nights when I got drunk with Emmy, and it's possible someone could have slipped me something. What's most frightening is that Luke tested Sophie's DNA many years ago. I have a feeling he knows a lot more about this than he's saying. I've discussed this with my therapist and my lawyer. I've tried to get to the bottom of it, but I have no answers. I honestly told Sophie everything. I believe Luke is trying to make her doubt me, to drive a wedge between us. I swore to her that I never had an affair, that these results are impossible. I don't think she completely believes me, but I also don't feel that she's angry with me or feels betrayed. Rather, I think she would prefer it to be true, for Luke not to be her biological father. My other children don't know about this part yet, but they probably will soon. Gossip spreads among Emmy's kids and mine at lightning speed. I've never been the type of parent to read my children's texts, so I don't know the details, but I'm not going to bring it up unless Sophie herself gives me the okay. Only her results were negative. For the other children, it's confirmed that Luke is their father. Kate isn't speaking to any of the children, but that doesn't mean she's giving them the silent treatment. Technically, they are all now forbidden from contacting Kylie, so keeping their distance is not a choice but a necessity. But Kate is angry at both of them, especially after seeing the state Kylie was in. The next time she sees them, she will probably just explode. I would love to describe a happy ending for our family, but we are very far from it. The very thought that I might have been assaulted and only found out about it now is truly traumatizing me. In any case, I don't know when I'll write the next update, but tonight I'm taking the kids to a haunted house. So at least that should be fun. Comments from the author regarding the DNA test showing Luke is not Sophie's father, and comparing Sophie's DNA with my own. I don't think a mistake could have happened, because after Sophie was born, I kept her with me the whole time. She didn't go to the nursery, but to be sure, I did that test too. Question: could Sophie's DNA have been mixed up with someone else's? Or what if the author is not the biological mother? Anything is possible, but I don't see how. I barely let her out of my sight. I was a first-time mom and very protective of her. I was more relaxed with the subsequent children. I've heard of chimerism. I don't think that's our case, but I can check that too. The author is worried about what will happen if it turns out she is not Sophie's biological mother. I'm still going to do this test, but if the result shows that Sophie is not my daughter, what if the state takes her away from me? On the likelihood that she was drugged when she got pregnant with Sophie. Yes, during that period, there were several nights when I got pretty drunk. Comment: if Luke only insisted on testing Sophie and not the other children, it means he knows something you don't. If we believe you didn't cheat, this opens a Pandora's box. I hope you find out the truth and Luke is held accountable. He wanted to test all our children, but especially Sophie. Regarding Sophie's appearance, Sophie looks Asian. Yes, she looks more like me than Luke, but she's not my exact copy. But she looks enough like me that I find it hard to believe we're not blood relatives. Well, unfortunately, there were no more updates from the author. Yes, I understand that you, like me, would very much like to hear the whole story, how it all ended. especially given that the story is already very, very long. But alas, the author did not see fit to write any additional updates, and moreover, the last update was about 7 months ago, and since then, the user's account has been deleted. So it's unclear what happened next. Therefore, I suggest we just fantasize in the comments. I hope that all this trash ends, or has ended, well, if that's even possible, and that the author finds herself a much better husband than the one she had. Anyway, thank you for watching this video to the end. Watch our previous videos, which you'll see right here. Also, follow the link in the description to watch other similar videos of this length. If you're interested in long, hour-long videos, subscribe to our channel, of course, and good luck to you.